This episode of the Trip Sitting Podcast is sponsored by fungi. Fungi uses kanna, which is a succulent from South Africa and known for its mood enhancing, euphoria inducing, and stress relieving properties. Sometimes it is referred to as nature's MDMA. It is legal in the United States, and it is just wonderful. It's super heart opening. It makes you feel good. They've put it in chocolates, fruit chews, and tinctures. And I recommend using it if at the beginning of the day you want to just open up your heart and feel that throughout the day. Or if you're looking to go out with some friends and maybe you don't want to use alcohol or any other types of substances, it's a really great thing to have in the tool belt so you can still be social and still feel good while you're out there and not have to deal with any sort of hangover afterwards. So order at the link in the footnotes of this podcast and use code TRIPSITTING for 15% off your order. Again, use the link in the footnotes of the podcast and use code TRIPSITTING for 15% off your order of fungi products. This week's guest is somebody who has played a huge role in my own personal development, and that is because he is the founder of DreamGlade in Iquitos, Peru, which is the very first ayahuasca retreat center that I ever went to. And I learned so much from him, so much from the medicine. He's got so much wisdom and knowledge to share that I am honored to be able to bring him on this podcast to share this with you. Make sure that you are all following the podcast on whichever podcast streaming platform that you're listening to this on. And give us a rating if you feel called to do so we get in front of more viewers. And then also make sure you're following us on social media at _tripsitting_. Now, without further ado, here is this week's guest, Stace Povey. Feeling okay?
A little bit tired, like I told you. Just didn't sleep so good last night. So
yeah,
but I'm good.
Yeah. Any reason that you can pinpoint as to why you had trouble sleeping, or just one of those nights?
It comes in waves. I will sleep really well for months, and then I'll just get like a 2-3 week period where I'm just not sleeping well. Yep. And it's funny, my son, who is 9 years old, he's having the same issue. And we talked about it this morning, and I was like, I went to sleep and then I was wide awake at like 4 a.m. He said, yeah, me too, which is kind of strange, I didn't really sleep after that. It was kind of, trying half in and out until 20 past 6 when I had to get up, get the kids ready for school. So, I'm just looking at myself and going, he looks a bit tired.
It's okay. Just give yourself permission to be tired.
Well, being tired is actually sometimes a good state to be in because your mind is slower. So you're more in tune with your intuition, Yeah. And in the process of this interview, I would prefer to be coming from there rather than there,
It's funny. So this is for anybody listening to this. This is the second time we were attempting to record this because the first time there were some just technical issues.
Yeah.
And we
won't talk about the UFO visitation and the abduction. No, we'll keep quiet.
We're just gonna gloss over that. That's old news. But I was going back even when I was editing it and trying to, and I was like listening to it, and the funny thing is, as I was listening to it, I honestly thought that I was in such like a headspace when we did it the first time, and like usually I'm gonna I've been doing this for a while. I'm pretty fucking good at this point. I like how I sound. I like the way that I do these things, and that was an episode where all the technical difficulties aside, I don't think it even actually went super well. I think I was overthinking the fuck out of it, and I don't know why I did that. I was trying to think this morning, like, why would I have done that? And I think it's because, like, I see you as somebody who has so much knowledge and so much wisdom and so much to learn from that I think I was like a bit nervous and almost feeling this like unworthy sense that like, oh, who am I to like take up your time Just because of all that you've done for me, and by that I mean you allowed me to stay at your retreat center for a week to help me figure my shit out, and then I left.
Yeah. All I can say is if I could just allow you to have like a 5-minute peek inside my mind, you would no longer be so impressed or intimidated. I got the same shit going on as everybody else, mate. And we like to think that we got it all sorted by the time we get, to my age. I'm 53, and I kind of had this high hopes that I would have everything sorted out by now, and I really don't. But it's getting more clear what it is that I need to sort out. There's no hiding from it anymore. It's crystal clear. And I think that's the process that a lot of humans are going through right now. It's like a magnifying glass on our issues, on our shadow, on our shit that we have to work through it. Otherwise, it's going to torment us more and more and more. It's just not going to let us go, And it's strange. I was reading about this almost 30 years ago, about this process, and here we are. It's exactly as they explained it. Yeah.
So you're saying is there are no shortcuts?
Honestly, I ask myself why it has to be so fucking difficult. Some days it's like, I look at God and was this the best you could do? This is the best system you could come up with. I'm sure there's an easier way, but here we are. And I always tell people, the first thing always in the process of healing is awareness. You've got to be aware of what needs to be healed. And if you're not aware of what needs to be healed, how can you possibly heal it, right? So at the moment in my own life, it's all about being very aware. I mean, just glaringly aware of the things that I need to heal about myself. And without even looking at the world, because the world, oh my God, there's so much work to be done, and it's coming to a head. It's definitely, you can see it, you can feel it, right? I mean, I don't even watch the news, but just feedback I'm getting from other people sending me messages and stuff is like, things are getting more and more intense. I'm hearing, in Europe, in the States, we're heading to a bottleneck,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that the more people that commit to doing their own healing and their own inner work will help solve those outer problems? Or do you think focusing on the outer problems is where the focus needs to be?
No, 100%. If you're looking at the outer problems all the time, you're pretty much just distracting yourself from the real work that needs to be done, and that's on you.
Yeah.
The whole of this man-made reality that we're aware of, the planet, I'm talking about our creation, is a reflection of the human mind, human consciousness. So all of the stuff we see out there that is falling apart and in a big old mess, it's reflecting directly the state of our consciousness, collectively. And the collective state of consciousness is made up of individual states of consciousness. And that's the only way we're going to change the collective one, is to change the individual one. So I've met people who spent their whole lives, protesting and working for Greenpeace and fighting against all the injustice in the world. And it's a bottomless pit. It's never going to end. I mean, I see it it's a worthy cause, as long as it's not something that's just a means to distract yourself from your own stuff. And that is very often the case. I'm not saying it's always the case, but very often the case.
Yeah.
And it's a way of feeling righteous and putting yourself on a pedestal of I'm better than everybody else. So it's all ego games and tricks. I would say I've been getting lots of messages from our ex-guests from DreamGlade saying, England's going crazy. There's lots of problems here in the States. Oh, the States is good. Australia. And they all ask me, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm saying, just get centered, get grounded, and try and get into your heart and try not to let it affect you too much.
Mm.
Because if you start adding to it, if you start reacting, getting triggered, taking sides, then you're just adding to the negativity, to the energy, and that's what they want. we won't go into who they are, but that's what they want. I've been seeing this whole thing about these, the dubious sexuality of these boxers in the Olympics, right?
Mm.
And I can't avoid it because it's everywhere. It's on Google, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, and I don't spend a lot of time on these sites, but it's just like boom, 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 and I haven't commented, I haven't taken a side, I haven't even just bemused by it all. How angry and how upset and how everybody feels they're on the right side, and it's just this huge divisions and conflicts, and it's just like, wow. This is insanity. What's going on with us at the moment?
It's crazy to me how many people feel the need to voice their opinions on things that have genuinely nothing to do with them. Like, you take out most of the things that are happening today and truly look at them like for what they are, regardless of what it does, like how much it's going to affect my individual life.
Exactly.
Basically zero. So why the fuck am I spending this time and energy like having an opinion about it? Like, again, that's just
distraction.
It's just distracting. It's just distracting.
More distractions. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, how does this affect me? In the beginning, I thought, oh wow, yeah, that's really not cool. If this guy was born a man and then had a sex change operation, then he should not be boxing. Sorry, not against women. That's not fair. But then I found out that actually this person was born with female genitalia. So it's like, well, so what's the problem? I'm getting confused now. And then that's when I kind of just started, here's that issue again. Let's just distance ourselves from that. I haven't even watched the Olympics. Have no desire to watch it. Why am I getting pulled into this argument, this distraction? Yeah,
it's just so easy. Like, we're so used to being distracted and like being told to care about these things. Like, until I started working with ayahuasca with you, and then after that took just a lot of time to myself to be like, okay, what is it that I actually care about? Like, I was so unaware of how much I was enthralled in all of this stuff. Like, it was truly like, and if you would have told me like, hey, you're spending your energy this, like, I would have been like, no, I'm not. Like, this is just living my life. And so like, getting that awareness is key. I mean, as you were saying earlier, like, that's the fucking key. I don't know how to really cultivate, like, to just give somebody that awareness without them wanting it is the thing. Like, unless somebody is seeking to do better and heal themselves, I don't know if there's a way to just like snap them out of it.
It's not really your business. First of all, you don't have to save anybody. There was a great metaphor that I read. I can't remember where I read it. That if you've got a log in a fire and it's burning really brightly, and then you put a cold log next to that log for 15 minutes, it's gonna pick up the heat and the light. So just being at a higher or the highest state of consciousness you can achieve, that in itself is affecting, that's sending ripples. And that's really all we need to do, I think, because otherwise it's so easy to get into a preachy mode. And there are so many preachers out there, and I guarantee that a lot of them don't walk the walk. They talk the talk, So yeah, we've got to be careful with that one. if someone seems genuinely open and interested in a subject, by all means share, or you can start a conversation about these things just as a test to see where it goes, to see how they respond. But we always got to be careful about not getting on our soapboxes and becoming the preacher, or I am on a higher level than you are kind of bullshit. But the other thing I was going to mention, because you're quite young. How old are you? You're maybe 30 something?
27.
27, yeah. It has, the distractions have just exploded since the birth of the touchscreen cell phones. Because, for a good part of my life, when I was in my 20s, we didn't have those. When I was a teenager, when I was about maybe 12 years old, Atari came out, right? And I didn't have one. I knew one kid that had one. We had a lot less distractions.
Yeah.
And now you have so much information in the palm of your hand, and so many opinions, so many subjects to hook into, that it's really hard not to get distracted by it all, unless you can just maybe throw the phone away, or which is tempting, right? Or just turn it off most of the time and don't look at it. It's extremely challenging as a parent, because I have children and they want to look at phones, they want to look at YouTube, they want to play games.
Yeah.
Then when my eldest daughter, now she's 14, she wants to get onto social media. It's a minefield now. As a parent, it's like, Jesus, where do we put limits on this? How do we control this? Really difficult.
How do you navigate having that conversation with them? Because like these things, like phones specifically, in every single app, especially social media, they're specifically designed to keep us coming back. Like they're designed to give us these little hits of dopamine every single time we do something, and then so we're chasing that.
Sure.
And we keep going back and back and back, and it keeps on. And now there's a whole algorithm that's involved to like give us the curated things that it knows it's going to rile us up. And so how do you go about having that conversation with kids who don't want to hear any of that shit? Like they could give less of a fuck.
It's tricky. I mean, my eldest daughter is not here. She's not living with me. She's in Iquitos. So I've had that. I didn't notice her getting too into that, but that could have changed. So I can definitely have that conversation with her. My son is only 9. He's not really interested, but he likes YouTube. He likes to play games, so we have to give him like a limit of how much time he can play games each day. My youngest, she's one I'm a little bit concerned about, because she just loves skimming around on YouTube. So I have to limit that as well, right? You got an hour or two, and then that's it. We're turning it off. And I see them just spending so much time looking at screens, and like, Jesus, it was so much better when we didn't have this. When I was a child in England in the 70s, we had 3 TV channels. That was it. And we had like an hour, 2 hours of kids programs per day. That was it, from like 3 till 5. And they weren't that good. So we spent most of my childhood, I just spent outdoors, playing on my bike, skateboarding, roller skating, climbing trees, I mean, just being a healthy, fit, young kid,
And then also now, clubbing.
Clubbing, I can't say that. But I'm quite grateful that I didn't have these temptations. And even when, I was probably 14 years old, when arcade games started getting popular, like the big machines.
Yeah.
And they had,
the thing is you had to go somewhere to do that.
Like put money in the machine.
It still took effort, whereas now it's so effortless. And if you if you go to a lot like there are bars and stuff now that exist that are have like a bunch of those old arcade games, and you can just play the games for free, because everybody's buying alcohol and everybody's doing that. So like they just have the things there to just keep you there and keep you drinking.
Yeah, I mean the whole internet thing, computer thing, cell phone thing, there
You're
are
dating yourself.
obvious advantages. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you can just find any information you want like instantly.
We can do
But,
this right
but
now.
yeah, we can do this. So there are so many benefits, but does the downside outweigh the benefits? Sometimes I think it does. Sometimes
I
I
think
think,
about that
yeah,
constantly about like, yes, it's so cool that we have all this information and that we're able to do this and able to connect with people across the world and shit, but like at what cost?
yeah,
And like it it's just that it moved so fast. It moved so fast and it all happened before anybody that was like getting sucked into it had time to think, wait a second, is this what we should be doing? And like I think it was just done without any genuine intention behind it, and then we've only
yeah.
realized.
That's the whole of human history, pretty
Yeah,
much. You know, I mean, it's about money and
yeah.
profit. That's what it's all about, always. You know,
Mm.
so I don't think there was any way of stopping it. It's like they're going head first into the AI abyss.
Yeah.
You know, which is we've had movies warning us about this. You know, Terminator. Did they not see the Terminator? The Matrix.
$1984.
Of the possibilities of AI getting to the point where it's saying, "Hey, I don't need humans anymore." You
Yeah.
know, and everyone has some kind of stake in that research, they all say the same thing. Yes, there is that risk.
I mean,
So
me as a
so
human.
why do you keep doing it then? This is
Yeah, me
insanity. Yeah.
me as a human, if I'm thinking about it, if I'm thinking that I'm a really smart computer, I think the logical conclusion that I would come to is that we get rid of the humans because we're the ones that keep fucking everything up. So like
Yeah.
even as a human, I can come to that conclusion that like yes, I absolutely see that and kind of agree with them. So maybe we shouldn't keep doing that and keep going down that road.
Yeah. And it's also, again, it's like people losing their jobs
Hmm.
because of the AI thing. And the argument is, oh, well, people have much more free time, you know?
Nah.
No, they won't. Yeah, they just have no money and no
I
food.
that's I
And this is an interesting comparison. That I was reading a book. Oh God, what was it called? This book. God, I can't remember. But it was about the slums of Calcutta. I think it was a real story, true story about the real poor slums of Calcutta in India, and that there were these people in the countryside who would create bowls from wood and from ceramics, and for 1,000 years, that's how their families made their living.
mhm.
They were the bowl makers, yeah, or the bag makers in the village, and these would be brought into the city and sold. And then plastic came on the scene,
Mm.
plastic bowls, plastic bags, and this whole swathes, is that the right word? Swathes of people who had traditionally made their living generation after generation after generation. It just ended. And
Mm.
those skills just died. Nobody wanted to do it anymore because there was no money and you couldn't survive with it anymore. So here you are. This is an example of progress without anybody thinking too much about the repercussions and the consequences that are not great. You know, I mean, I think for me personally, maybe the best and worst invention in history is the plastic bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very handy if you've got a bunch of, you know, chicken entrails that you want to get home. You want to put it off some fresh fish. It's much easier to put in a plastic bag, right? So they're really handy. Or if you're going camping and you want to keep everything separate and dry, you know, really useful. But when you go past areas where there's indiscriminate dumping, which happens in Peru, especially in Lima, it's just horrific.
Yeah.
And you think of the trillions and trillions of plastic bags that are out floating around in the ocean and the rivers, and that we are producing daily and just
Hmm.
one use throw away. It's just insanity. It's like, what are we doing? we're really, really messing things up. We got to think about what we're doing.
I
But again,
remember
profit comes before thought.
I remember in college I took this one course and we were talking about talking about environmental impacts. It was like some logistics business course or whatever, but it was specifically talking about K cups, which are like the Keurig coffee makers, and you just put in the cup and
Uh
it just
huh.
goes down. And talk about how that was like the most successful product that they've ever created, and then also has potentially like one of the worst environmental impacts of any product ever created in history because of just how many are used every single year and how they simply are not able to be recycled in any way, shape, or form. Like I
Yeah.
think we produce around 2 billion just disposable plastic cups every year that
Yeah.
just get thrown away and they don't decompose and they just stay there. And it's just so fucking crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
And as consumers, at least like growing up as a consumer, like I didn't think of any of that shit. Like I'm not thinking of the environmental impact because I throw my trash in my thing, the trash service picks it up, and then I don't ever have to think about it. Like
Yeah.
because we don't have to think about our trash because it goes somewhere far away. Like we get to have this illusion of feeling like we're doing the right things. But like, if there was a trash dump right over there and I had to see it all, I'd probably think twice before I bought some of the things that I buy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always try and take if I go to a market where I always take a big bag with me, and I try not to put things in bags. And it's you have to make a bit of an effort.
Yeah.
At least in the States, you've got a recycling program. Here, it's kind of slow to get off the ground. It's happening, but it's very slow.
I don't think the
Um,
recycling program here actually does a lot of the recycling that it says it
no,
does from from
some countries are really advanced in this. Like Sweden, I
yeah.
think is actually importing trash from other countries because they don't have enough
Yeah.
trash, and they're creating power like electricity with the trash.
Hmm.
So there are solutions, but uh, yeah, it's again going back to that point we made in 10 minutes ago. Is about thinking about things first before just going steamrolling ahead. Just not even caring about the consequences.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, oh well, I can make loads of money, and fuck everybody else. I don't care if that's going to be a problem or that's going to for them or for them. I'm going to be okay. So it's the me. Service of self
Hmm.
rather than service of others or service of the collective.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two distinct differences, and the 99.99% of humans on the planet right now is service to self.
Hmm.
We're very selfish, and we don't care so much about how our actions are affecting other people, right, or the environment, etc. Um, and yeah, it's sad. It's concerning as a parent
It's
because
fucking bleak, man.
yeah, I mean, I was at 18 years old. I was reading books about Greenpeace and about the environment, and it wasn't really a hot topic of those days. But people weren't too concerned. And this is 30 odd years ago. And I was reading stuff about what was going on around the world, and at one point, it just dawned on me. It's like we're in trouble if we don't change. We're in deep shit. Like you just draw, you can say this is where we are, and you just draw the lines forward, and at some point you're going to get to that point where we cannot sustain ourselves, or the planet cannot sustain us anymore.
Yeah, the planet cannot sustain us as humans. The planet's going to be fine. The planet
Planet's
has a
going to be
way
fun.
of
Yeah,
figuring itself out. Whether we stay on the planet during that process, that has yet to be
yeah,
seen. And, I think
yeah,
that if we continue down this path, we're simply not going to be there. Like everything that we're doing should be thinking generations ahead. But we obviously tend to think about ourselves in our lifetimes. What can we do right now? And fuck that. Like I'm gonna be dead. I don't care. But like,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know, thinking about the collective involves us thinking, okay, what are my potential great 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 grandchildren, how are their lives going to be? How is
Yeah.
what I do right now and what we do collectively going to affect that? And understanding that these things take so much time. And to tie this all back to just like healing in general, it takes time. Like it's not with ayahuasca. It's not like you go to an ayahuasca retreat and then all your shit's fixed and you get back and your life's perfect. it's it's a step in a very very long process that, in my opinion, doesn't ever actually end. There's always more work that will need to get done as you continue to do that. And I think it just made me a lot more comfortable with that fact of realizing that, okay, this is a process. It's slow. It's not supposed to happen overnight. It's taking one minute step in a new direction every single day, and just trusting that that's going to continue to get me to a better place wherever it is I'm trying to go. But like that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading recently about our history. If you want to understand the present, read about the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
But be careful of the sources
Mm.
because you know what they say: history is written by the winners. Winners. So you have to read some information that is unbiased as possible, and realize that pre-Christianity, Europe was pagan. Basically, what does it mean to be pagan? It means that they were very connected to nature, and they worshipped nature, and it was a very feminine energy. They understood the balance of male and female, and that both had to be respected, both had to be honored. That nature and humans were connected. That we couldn't destroy our environment. We had to take care of Mother
We are the
Earth.
environment. We are
Yeah,
part of
we
the
had to.
environment.
Yeah, we are part of it, and this was the predominant human consciousness all over the planet. Whether you were in African tribes or North American Indian tribes or Central American, Mesopotamian culture, or the Incas or the Maya or the Aboriginals in Australia, they're all pretty much on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
And then something changed, especially in Europe, Middle East as well. You had a couple of very big religions were birthed or created, Christianity, Islam. And they were similar in that it got very patriarchal. It became male dominated. It became this separation from nature, especially female nature energy. And it became focused on dominating and conquering nature rather than living in harmony with it. And you can see that difference, like in the rainforest of Peru and the Amazon, which I've spent quite a bit of time in. That the indigenous tribes spent thousands and thousands of years living in perfect harmony in this environment. The Europeans arrived and they hated it. Why did they hate it? Because it made them feel so small and insignificant. Because it's so powerful and it's so brutal. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're dead in a couple of days, because it's heavy. It's a very serious environment. And the Europeans from day one wanted to dominate it, wanted to profit from it,
Yeah.
and were very frustrated by the fact that they couldn't. And then, and for a group of tribal people to cut down a big, 300-year-old tree, it would take them a month with literally Stone Age tools, yeah? And then the Europeans arrived with steel, and they had axes. They could do it in a few days. A couple of guys working together. And then chainsaws were invented. Wow, you could do it in an hour. Yeah, bulldozers. Then they start stripping and clearing the jungle, destroying it, dominating, conquering it, profiting from it. They've been very frustrated, man, in these areas for a long time. There's all this area and we can't get anything from it. We can't get any money from it. And it's a very feminine energy as well. And they've just destroyed it. And, and I don't want to go into an anti-religion rant, but they were treating the indigenous people all over the world, whether it was in North America, Central America, South America, Australia, South Pacific, Africa, treating indigenous people and their pagan earth worshipping beliefs as devil worshippers, and they were killing them and destroying their cultures. So there's been this split that happened, probably 1,500 years ago, 1,700 years ago, where we branched off into a very dangerous direction. And we are now seeing the result of that, the end product of this separation from nature, separation from the feminine energy, and this attitude of the earth owes us something, that it's there to be plundered and conquered and destroyed and dominated. So it's interesting times.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? We need to correct our course. We've been off course for a long time. We need to correct course. If we don't, then maybe Earth will just shake us off like a bunch of fleas.
Yeah. The idea and there's always something at a lesson that I had learned before when I was with you, but that came to me again over the weekend when I was sitting in ceremony, is like, we can always choose to turn towards the light. Like, we can always see the light even in the darkest times. Like, it's up to us to be able to do that. There's humor in all of this. Like, this is all a big cosmic joke of us even thinking that we can dominate the universe and that we can control and make a difference of these things that we truly have absolutely no fucking control over whatsoever. And the whole idea of killing other beings in the name of God, like like that's objectively really funny to me.
It's insanity. It's total insanity. But it was for a long time, and still today, but not as extreme, but for a long time, they felt completely justified and completely righteous about what they were doing. They were working with God on their side. So, if they had to mutilate and torture people and kill them, and God was all for that. So, it's
in the name of God.
In the name of God. And if we could get rich in the process, awesome. And the organizations, the God, middlemen.
God created the church. What do you mean?
Got extremely rich, and so now, Islam and Christianity, the two most biggest, richest corporations on the planet.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to upset people out there who are religious, whatever. Or I would say is, if you're going to worship someone like Jesus, you can just do it directly. You don't need the church. You don't need the Bible. The Bible has been heavily edited over hundreds and hundreds of years by different people, and their main aim was to control and get profit and power. There's, I think it's 6 Gospels in the Bible, but they discovered that there was a whole bunch that weren't included, like another 25.
Shocking.
And they were omitted from the Bible because they didn't work.
Didn't really work with what I'm trying to do here.
It didn't fit the agenda, right?
I mean, the funny thing about working with these medicines too, and like really just going down the more spiritual path, is you can actually begin to really see a lot of the truth within those original religious, like, spiritual teachings.
Yeah.
Like, at least for me, I felt more connected with the teachings of Jesus Christ after my experience with ayahuasca. And that's as a Jewish man, by the way, who never spent any time giving a fuck about any of that. I was like, I saw the genuine truth in it. And then I saw how it's been changed in order to, help control some people a little bit. And let's just change this wording, veer this, take out some stuff. And now it's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking pretty much all organized religion. It's all been adulterated and edited and changed in order to suit the needs of the people in charge, right? But the figures at the root of these religions, like Jesus Christ or like Buddha or like who's at the root of the Jewish faith? I don't know. Is it
Abraham, Moses.
Abraham?
There's like a couple of them.
Yeah, there were some very highly spiritual beings that had possibly reached a level of consciousness that we all aspire to, right? And they were way showers. They came down and had these lives and shared these experiences with as many people as possible to show people this is what is possible. You can do this, But yeah, unfortunately, it got a bit twisted down the line.
Just a tad.
Like I say, I don't want to. I've had arguments with Christians, and they're like, "Oh, the Bible is the truth," and blah blah blah. And I said, "Have you ever researched the history of the church, especially the Catholic Church? Because if you read, and I'm not saying not read Catholic books, I'm saying read unbiased books about what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be horrified of the things that they did to people. I mean, they killed 1 million women in Europe in the century. 1 million women were killed for being witches, and they were tortured first. Usually for days or weeks, and when they finally confessed, which of course you're going to, then they were burned at the stake.
Yeah.
I mean, this is horrific, demonic, and yet this was completely normal in those times. In the history of the church. So I would always say to people, do some research before you're blindly following any organization or religion or cult. Right?
It's hard, and I feel for people that are very attached to like their belief systems, even if they're doing it in a good name, or like they're not trying to be dicks about it. Let's say whatever, they're not going out and killing people and being hypocrites and stuff, which a lot of people are. But like, it has to do with like their identity. Their whole identity has been built on this thing that they believe is good and has done good in the world. And like all of the shame and the guilt that will come up when they realize that maybe it hasn't been the greatest thing over the course of history, and then they've completely lost their identity. Like, that's very uncomfortable to come to terms with. And so I see why people would want to try to hold on to that for as long as they possibly can and never give that up, because they won't necessarily know what to do without that. And it's tough. And I don't want people to be in complete disarray, because that's just creating more and more chaos.
I've met Christians who really were or are good people, and really try to live as much like Christ as possible, and I commend these people, but they seem to be in the minority, in my experience. So I don't want to go religious bashing, but we do have to, like you say, we have to be really honest with ourselves. We have to, honesty, and that's a hard one. Most people
it's hard to be honest with ourselves when it comes to fucking anything. I mean, just over this past weekend, I just at this point where I was looking for some more clarity, and so like the first night I kind of got some clarity as to what it was that I needed to focus on, and realized that there was some self-doubt in these things I was holding on to. And so the second night I was like, just help me let go of whatever it is that I need to let go of. And then that took me to a place that I was just so unaware that I was still harboring all of these feelings towards. One of those nights where it's truly like, yeah, she's going to give you what you want, just not in the way that you're like, she's going to give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. Like, she gave me exactly what I asked for, just not in the way I wanted it to happen. But it was what needed to happen, of like, these feelings of shame and guilt that I've been just carrying, that I had no idea that I have even been carrying for so long, about this thing that happened so fucking long ago in my childhood. I'm like, well, I guess that's been subconsciously weighing on me for my entire life. So I'm glad I get the opportunity to deal with it, but some heavy shit sometimes. It's like, I don't like, come on, like I've got other stuff to do right now. Can we not dredge this up right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's ayahuasca is very good at bringing stuff from the subconscious into the conscious.
Yeah.
And often it's stuff that people weren't even aware of. They could be live 30 years on this planet and never really understood what was going on in the background. And if you want to understand the programming that's going on in the background, you need to look at your first 7 years of life on this planet. That's a really important time in every human's life.
Why the first 7?
Because the brain frequency wave, the waves of the brain are much slower. They're at theta, which is THETA, which is a kind of hypnotic, suggestive state, like a trance. And basically we are just sponges. We're just sucking in information without analyzing too much. And I do coaching work with people, and the first few sessions I put an emphasis on them going back into those years and really trying to figure out what kind of programming did you pick up at that time, because those programs are running in the background, in the subconscious, your whole life. And whenever you're not conscious, i.e. whenever you're not present, which is most of the time, right? The subconscious programs take over. So they're just running the show. This is why people who are kind of on a spiritual path and have read all the books and have done the courses are often very frustrated, because they know what they need to do. They know which changes they need to make, but they keep slipping back into the same dysfunctional patterns. Why is that? Because the subconscious programs have not been addressed, have not been changed. Have not been brought to the forefront, to the front of the mind.
You're trying to essentially add programming on top of that rather than go back and maybe tweak the original programming.
Yeah, they're very hard to budge because they're uploaded. You can look at them as uploaded onto a hard disk at a time when it's very easy to upload. But when you get to an adult state, your mind is working at a much higher frequency, alpha states, beta states, and it's very hard for the conscious mind to change stuff in the subconscious. There's like a barrier in between the two. You call it the analytical mind. And one of the ways to hack into those subconscious programs is to slow the mind down. How do you slow the mind down? Meditation, chanting, drumming, really good one. That's why shamanic practices often use drums, and they'll often do it as a very slow beat, getting slower and slower. That as a process of slowing the brain waves down, getting you into a trance-like state. And then you are much more open to new programs being put in there. So the first thing is to understand what programs are running in the background. And then the second stage is to think, well, do I like these programs? The second stage is
serving me at the moment.
Is this best serving me? And if they're not, all right, how can I change these programs into something that is more in alignment with my present state, or my present beliefs? So it's well known. There was a famous quote by, what was his name? Was it Desacris? I can't remember the guy. He said, give me the man, give me a child until he was 7 years old, and I will show you the man. Right? So he was talking about this exactly. The Sioux Indians, I don't know if we talked about this the first time. The Sioux Indians, which are a tribe, I think, from California, who were very spiritual people. And they had ways of controlling childbirth, pregnancy through herbs, and plants and stuff, and observing cycles. And when they had a child, they would practice contraception for 7 years, because they believe it took 7 years to make a good suit. Right? So there's these clues left around, in the older cultures, that they understood very clearly that it was a very important time. It was like the building blocks of that person's whole life. So if you want to, get down into the dirty stuff, drink some ayahuasca, some psychedelics. They help. They get you in there. Or just write about what was going on at that time and try and pull together a general, a summary of, all right, so what were my influences? What programming was I receiving at that time? In my case, as a child in the 70s of hippie parents, very hippie parents. We didn't have sofas in my house. We had cushions on the floor. We had murals on the floor, on the ceiling. I was vegetarian. I had a girl's name. I was like the only dude. I was the only dude in England called Stacy, right? I had long hair because my mum wouldn't let me cut it. And you can imagine, got that primary school years, which is those first 7 years, I got a lot of negative attention.
That must have been rough.
Yeah. And how did I deal with it? I just used to punch kids, just come out swinging. My father was very fiery, my mother as well. So that's where I got it from. And I looked back and I'm like, okay, so what did I learn? What programming did I pick up at that time? It was the world was a hostile place, that I was not normal, that I was not accepted, that the people around me would attack me and mock me or pick on me at the slightest provocation, and I had to be ready to defend myself at all times and attack if need be. And this is recent, the last few years, where I actually did this work and look back with a gulp. It was like an uncomfortable gulp in my throat. It's like, shit, that program has been running in the background my whole life. That's how I've seen the world around me. Just ready for the attack and ready to defend myself at all times, So, and I looked at it and I said, it served me well in many instances. It's actually not been a bad thing, because the world is a hard place. Yeah,
it can be.
It can be, and it's not a bad thing to be able to defend yourself, and be tough. But I was looking at it now at my age. It's like, is this serving me now? No, not really. It's causing me problems now, and I need to change it. So one of the things I recommend to my clients and myself, I've done it, is to create a new program, such as, in my case, the world is a benevolent place. I am loved. I am respected. I am supported. I am accepted. And create like a mantra, a sentence or two, and just repeat it all the time, over and over and over and over. Repetition, it kind of sinks in. It breaks through that barrier into the subconscious. It's a bit like, I had a great, an illuminating experience whilst I was doing this work, is that I had a kettle because I love my tea, right? I'm an Englishman. And I had a kettle that I would use every 5-6 times a day to make my tea, and the button was on the bottom of the kettle. So I'm pressing the button. And then the kettle broke, and I had bought a new one, and the button was on the top. Yeah? And for how much time do you think I kept going to the bottom of the kettle?
Years.
It took me a long time. A month. Took me a month. So there was a very clear example of subconscious programming. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that same thing over and over and over for years, because that kettle we had for years, it got programmed into my subconscious. So I wasn't even thinking about it anymore. It's just like click, 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 automatic, And then when it came to try and change that programming, it was very stubbornly to say, no, the button's on the bottom, the button's on the bottom. What are you doing? What are you doing? What do you mean it's on the top? Yeah. So through repetition of going to the top, eventually we replaced that programming with the new programming, right?
And you have to be consciously going to the top of the kettle every single time. Being aware and being present with the fact that I'm going to the kettle and I'm turning the kettle on at the top right now.
Right. And doing it as much as possible. So this is what I get my clients to do, is like, well, we're going to create some new programs, and you're going to write it down, and then you're going to just say this to yourself as many times as possible each day, 50 times a day, 100 times a day. And if you can keep it up for a month, you're going to create some new programs in your subconscious. It's very simple. And funnily, in one of my clients, I'm actually explaining this. And he said, oh, I have a degree in psychology. And I was like, oh, shit, I got really uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know already. And he said, no, we didn't. He said, we didn't learn any of this stuff. And I'm like, what? What? How is this possible? I was just completely dumbfounded. Wow. That is like the most important part of psychology, and you didn't even teach it to you, or maybe he was absent in those classes. I don't know, but yeah, it's very effective. But more effective if you can slow the brain down first. Slow the brain waves down. Drumming. When you drum, right?
I do now. Yeah, yeah.
And if you drum for 10 minutes, how does it make you feel?
Oh man, I'm relaxed. I'm in flow.
Yeah, you've slowed your brain waves down. That would be a very good time when you finish drumming to do the mantra for 5 minutes. The new programs. This is all right. I don't want to, and you don't put in negatives. You don't say I don't want to do this or I don't want to be this. You just put in positives.
Like I am this.
I am. Yeah, I am. This is exactly. So it's something. Yeah, I practice them myself and I practice with others, and it works. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
The only time it's a problem is that if they don't remember those first 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of the exercises that you told us about during the retreat that you tell to a lot of people is that to like go in their journal, set a timer or something, and just think about something from their past, like, some sort of moments, whether it was a moment where they had fear, felt shame, regret, anything like that, and just write it down in as much detail as they possibly can, not trying to analyze it, just writing the factual ideas of like what happened. And then at the end of it, take that and then burn it and throw it away.
Yeah, I mean, the most important part of that process is you're trying to bring up repressed emotions.
Yeah.
Because we are repressing emotions all the time.
But then being able to let go of those emotions, like while you're writing, because I remember.
Yeah, it's not even a question of letting go. It's a question of accepting them. Actually, you want to let them in. Because when you try and let stuff go, it's like I'm trying to get this thing that I don't like so much away from me, and that doesn't work. That's resistance. Actually, you have to own it. This is mine. This is my pain. This is my rage. This is my sadness. When we have negative judgment about what we're feeling, we're repressing. And this is most people all the time. And it's not our fault. We were told as children, don't be sad. Don't cry. Don't get mad. We were given very clear instructions that these emotions are not good and these emotions are good. So if you're feeling the not good ones, you're failing.
Put them down.
Wrong. Bad. So people are like, oh, I feel really sad today. Shit, what's wrong with me? I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm such a loser, right? Which of course creates more sadness.
Yeah.
And then you just get caught up in that loop for years. You can, and then you go to the doctor. Say, I've been really unhappy for a year now. The doctor says, yeah, there's something wrong with you. You need to take some pills. I've got just the pills. There you go. Which doesn't fix the problem. It just buries the sadness, just like any other addiction. And that's pretty much what addictions are all about. Is just hiding from the pain. Whether it's smoking a crack pipe or smoking cigarettes or drinking too much alcohol or jerking off to internet porn or eating lots of junk food, which is the number one addiction in the USA right now. I mean, it's 60% of people are obese now.
Something like that.
Yeah, using food as a way of coping with the pain.
Yeah.
Right? Because people don't want to feel the pain. They feel uncomfortable about feeling the pain. They beat themselves up for having the pain in the first place.
Yeah, there's so much shame around even having the pain in the first place that this idea that I should have never even felt like this, and now I'm ashamed of myself for it.
So adding even more pain onto it,
Yeah.
And you keep doing that for years and years, and there's no outlet for that emotional pain, and then you get pulled to, addictive behavior that's probably not very good for your body, whether it's junk food or alcohol or drugs or whatever. And then you do that, for another 10, 20 years, and then you get really sick. At some point, the body is just, I've had enough. I can't survive anymore under this, toxicity, physical toxicity, emotional toxicity. Both of them are as bad, and they go hand in hand. Cancer is a relatively modern disease. Our ancestors going back 100 years or more didn't get cancer much. It was very rare, and they keep putting all this emphasis on we're trying to find the cure for cancer, and all the big corporations are throwing in. McDonald's is throwing in 100 million, and Taco Bell has thrown in 10 million, and KFC, and so they know it's their shit that is causing the disease, but nobody's talking about that. No, it's starting to get there a little bit. It's starting to progress,
We're trying to solve problems that we created in the first place without addressing the fact that we created the problem. Like, we're not going to the root of it, of being like, well, this is when this happened. This is when we veered off. Let's go back to that thing and let's stop that.
Yeah. But at that point where you get really sick, it's a crisis point.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for you to see the light, realize that this thing was probably self-created, and that you have the power to change.
You gotta own it.
Your life and have to heal yourself. And I've met many people, living in Iquitos for 15 years. I met many people who came from Western countries who were terminally ill with AIDS, with cancer, who were told by their doctors they had no chance. Say goodbye to the relatives, kind of thing. Went out into the jungle, spent a year dieting with plants, drinking ayahuasca, doing a lot of work on themselves, clearing the emotional backlog of 30 years and curing themselves, healing themselves completely. And I had conversations with these people, and they always said the same: emotional toxicity, physical toxicity. These are the two big issues you got to deal with to heal yourself.
Yeah.
So the writing exercise is a very simple one. Is you write about the painful experiences in your life, whether it was yesterday or 10, 20 years ago, and you deliberately bring up the pain, the sadness or the rage or the shame, whatever it is, without going into the story of why, and allowing yourself to feel it in a safe, controlled way, accepting it fully and accepting yourself fully for feeling it, and it will leave all by itself. And that is such a healthy practice to do. If you do that every day for a month, you can clear years and years of this toxic energy. Sadness, I always say to people, sadness is the number one most important, most useful emotion we have. Yet it's the one that everyone's trying to avoid, like it's the plague.
Yeah.
It's like if you're unhappy, you're failing at life. No, if you looked at the world lately, if you're not unhappy,
you should be sad.
If you're not unhappy occasionally, there's something wrong with you. Yeah. It's a very healthy reaction to a highly dysfunctional world. When we are sad, we are forced to make changes. We are forced to take a good look at ourselves. We are forced to take drastic measures, like going off to Peru and drinking ayahuasca. Yeah, or going on that yoga retreat, or that or healing retreat.
Afterwards, coming back and quitting my job and moving across the country.
Exactly, making big positive changes normally started with us feeling unhappy.
Yeah.
So let's stop treating it as the enemy. It's our friend. It's our biggest friend, our biggest teacher. So when you feel unhappy, stop, feel it. Oh, I'm really sad today, and it's okay. I'm allowed to feel this way.
It's powerful, man.
Yeah.
I want to wrap this up just because I know that we only got limited time here. One, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me. This has been truly a pleasure. I'm, very happy to be able to connect. As I said, you've played a pretty big role in where my life has gone over the past couple of years. What are you up to now? Just because we never really got a chance to get into that. Like, how can people connect with you and all that?
I'm like house husband at the moment because my partner is out working full time. And I'm actually quite happy to just spend lots of time at home and taking care of my kids, doing the school runs every day, doing the shopping I got to do in the afternoon, go to the supermarket, and also fixing up this house that we bought. So, and I'm not like desperate to run headfirst into another big time-consuming business, because I did that for 13 years, where I was just working obscene hours every week, 70, 80 hours a week, bringing bread to the table and being very successful, but neglecting myself and neglecting my family. So my idea, the last 6 months or so, is to see if I can do some coaching online, because it gives me the freedom to choose my own hours. It also allows me to share some of my experience, because I have a lot of experience. We had, 2,500 people came through the healing center, all needing to be healed, or go through that process, and being there with each one of them. You can't fail to learn something if you're paying attention, which we were. So we picked up a lot of tricks along the way. So I've had some clients. It's not a huge number, which I'm happy about. I've got some at the moment that I'm working with, and sharing with them my tricks and tools for self-development, for undoing a lot of the damage that was done, by our families, parents, school system, the world. And so far been really successful. I had really happy clients. They awesome. really like the work that we're doing. This is something I feel like I need to continue doing. I enjoy it. It puts me in touch with my own work that I need to do. It reminds me, because when I'm reminding other people, I'm reminding myself, right? It's a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned. And it allows me, to spend more time at home and spend more time with my family, and just slow down, because I spent so many years just in a big rush all the time. And I realized in the last couple of years, I need to slow down.
I think we all need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, sure. But it's hard if you're in a big city, like New York or London or LA. Good luck with that. It's easy where I am. I'm in a sort of, I'm on the outskirts of a small town, and big garden, lots of nature around, nice old farm cottage that we bought. It's a slower pace. I like it, but obviously I have to make a living. I have to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. So it's finding that balance. That's what I'm striving for right now, finding that balance.
Well, beautiful. Thank you again for sharing. I appreciate you. I've got so much love for you. And cheers.
Thank you for inviting me, mate. It's been a pleasure. I think this one flowed a bit better. I agree, than the last one. Hopefully you've got some good stuff in there that you can edit in and out. Will it down to a 10-minute YouTube clip.
It's perfect. It always is. All right. Cheers, mate.
All right, mate. Lots of love to you.
That is all I got for you this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Stace, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the world. If you want to get in contact with me, shoot me a DM on social media or send me a email. My email is tripsittingblog@gmail.com. If you're interested in just talking, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, collaborating in any way, I'm always happy to hear from people. Much love. We'll see you next episode.